Hello! Today I'm reviewing a random selection of very good Elden Ring weapons. There's no order or anything, so I guess I kinda lied when I said ranking in the title, but oh well, who cares. These weapons all have the potential to perform very well. Okay, let's go! First off is the Godslayer Greatsword. It's in a chest accessible after defeating the Godskin Apostle in the basement of the Caelid Divine Tower. Design wise, I have mixed opinions on this thing. I just can't decide whether I like this very unique look or if I find it absolutely hideous. I generally prefer swords that look like swords, but I can't deny there's something to this design that makes it stand out. That's all I can say. I don't even have an opinion on this. I genuinely don't know if I like or dislike the design. Gameplay wise, this weapon is already good on its own and it just gets better and better the higher NG plus you are. That is because Black Flame deals damage based on an enemy's percentage health. So this is one of the best weapon choices to melt those big boy health bars later in the game. For a colossal sword, it also feels surprisingly fast. I'm not sure if that's just my imagination, but I've always felt this thing swings just a little faster than other ultra great swords. Of course it's still slow as heck, but I'm 100% taking big, slow weapons over small, fast weapons. It's just way too frustrating for me whenever I miss attacks simply because I lack range. Then of course Black Flame counts as fire damage, which is super OP in this game. I feel like half of the enemies in this game are weak to fire. Anything plant based will take increased damage, and everything that has fur will burn as well, and being good at dealing with rune bears will always be a plus for any weapon. On top of that, fire can be buffed by so much. Flame grant me strength, the fire crystal tier and the fire scorpion charm will maximize your damage output. All of this is great, but I haven't even talked about the highlight yet. The Godslayer Greatsword's weapon art is insanely cool. The Queen's Black Flame, what a name, does an ungodly amount of damage with 2 heavy swings, with a whole lot of style. Black flames will cover your blade as you slash at your foes, dealing a ton of damage and once again burning them for a percentage of their health. Only thing is, this kinda takes ages. Especially the second swing requires rare opportunities, but if you can get it through, oh boy, that is so worth it. Okay, so a unique looking colossal sword, dealing fire damage and capable of mating those insanely big health bars in high iterations of NG+. Great reach, great skill, great sword. Why the fuck does it scale with dexterity? Blasphemous Blade. A boss weapon which can be bought from Enya after defeating Rykard. Design wise, minus 100 points. Ugh, disgusting. It's so bad, there are mods out there just to remove the slimy bloody limbs around the weapon. But to be fair, the weapon has to look like that, and most of the time you won't pay attention to that anyway. Gameplay wise, not gonna lie, this weapon is straight up broken. It's a greatsword dealing fire damage that scales with strength and faith. The greatsword moveset is and will always be my favorite, it's just all around reliable. Then we have more than enough range, but with less penalty than an ultra greatsword, and again fire damage. So far so good, but again its weapon art is where it shines. You fire a blast with very decent range and anything that is touched by that blast will take damage. You will heal from this every time you cast it and hit something. You can free aim this, but most of the time it'll hit anyway because it covers so much ground. This ability does insane damage on its own. It can be buffed by Shard of Alexander, the Fire Scorpion Charm, the Fire Crystal tier and Flame Grant Me Strength. You can reduce its FP cost with Carrion Filigree Crest. Let me summarize. You have a long range, multi-target damage option that also heals you at a cost of 22.5 FP with the Carrion Filigree Talisman. But somehow, this isn't enough, and you will also heal yourself for every enemy you kill on top of the initial heal you already get through the ability. Huh? Why was this necessary? I know Moonveil, Mo's Spear and Mariais' Executioner's Sword are broken as fuck, but I'd easily put Blasphemous Blade in this category too. It is so good, I don't even like to play it anymore, because it made the game too easy. But for anyone looking to make the game easier without the ridicule of using those OP katanas or arcane builds, this is the way. Mariais' Executioner's Sword. It's the reward for defeating Eleanor of the Briar in the Shaded Castle. Design wise, 10 out of 10. Gorgeous. I like swords that look like swords, and it checks that box while still looking unique with its broad blade. Hands down, one of my favorites in the game. Then it might surprise you to hear that I never did a playthrough with this weapon. I never used it. And a reason for that might be that gameplay wise, this sword is in the discussion for best weapon in the game right now. I already told you I kinda stopped using Blasphemous Blade because it made the game so easy, so I feared that the same thing might happen here too, and just never touched it. Well, what makes this weapon so good? First off, it's yet another greatsword. Best moveset, you know the deal. It does standard and pierce damage, pierce is like the best damage type in the game, and it scales with arcane and strength. That arcane scaling is another thing that turned me off from the weapon, I think. Not because it's bad, but because I pretty much exclusively play faith weapons, but that's another story. Anyway, once again, the real highlight of this weapon is its skill. You fling the sword forwards in a corkscrew attack, dealing damage to anything that gets caught in the spinning blade. As the animation ends, you perform one more swing, but in case your window is closing, you can cancel this. This skill is phenomenal for knocking lower poise enemies to the ground, but it's even better at dealing massive damage to anyone and anything. As long as you have a window to use this skill, you should use this skill. Its full potential can be reached with the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia Talisman and the Thorny Crag tier, since each strike of the corkscrew is considered an attack. So all in all, this sword is not only design, but also gameplay wise a 10 out of 10. Don't let my personal bias influence you here. If you want to use this sword, use it. It's insane. Halo Scythe. A rare drop from Cleanrod Knights wielding it. Design wise, certainly unique, I don't know if good. I mean, Reapers all look awesome, and this is no exception. But when I compare it to other Reapers, I get the feeling that I like the traditional ones a little more. Regardless, this thing looks sharp. I won't complain too much. Gameplay wise, this thing is a gem while not being too OP. Unfortunately, getting your hands on this gem can be quite tedious, as it's not a guaranteed drop. The good thing is, you can at least farm the enemies to drop it pretty effectively just south of the heart of Aeonia, because here, 2 patrolling Cleanrod Knights wield them. But then again, the drop chance is 2%, so good luck. One playthrough I had to farm them for like 40 minutes with 99 arcane until I got the drop. In another one, I randomly decided to kill a Cleanrod Knight on my way to Celia and instantly got one. This weapon deals slash damage and has scalings in strength, dexterity and faith, but dex unsurprisingly has the best scaling out of those. We got blood loss build up, which is huge, and the anti-block mechanic all Reapers share, meaning you deal decent damage even if an enemy is holding their shield up. The Ash of War is great too. Looks cool, feels good, overall great. One teeny tiny problem, it does holy damage. Bolt of Gransax. Found on the huge version of itself in Leyndell Royal Capital. Make sure to get it before burning the Earth Tree because it will disappear. Another unique design, and yet again I'm not even sure if I like it. But I think I do. It's kinda cool. Gameplay wise, it's incredible. It's a spear, so we got pierce damage and great range. It does 20% more damage against dragons and 10% increased damage against ancient dragons. And I mean, there are a lot of dragons in this game, so that's nice to have. And of course it's imbued with lightning, and lightning type damage is pretty good too. The elephant in the room is of course the Ash of War, which is absolutely fucking awesome. This is the coolest Ash of War in the game, not even close. It looks so sick how you jump into the air, catch a red lightning strike and then throw it like a spear with insane range and velocity. Seriously, you become a sniper with this skill. 2 flaws to this weapon? The spear moveset is pretty boring and it scales with dexterity, but if you don't mind that, you got yourself a nice looking weapon with great range and the coolest Ash of War in the game. Reduvia. You get it after defeating Mariais, the Bloody Finger, here. Its design is edgy, but in these games I'm absolutely here for that. A distinctive bloody, curled blade ready to rip some flesh. Shit, what more could you ask for? Well, talking about gameplay now, you could ask for a little bit more range. As mentioned, I much prefer the slow, big swords, but once in a while I'm down to play these fast weapons. They can be really satisfying too if you're able to get multiple attacks off. But still, it's always frustrating for me to miss attacks simply because I lack range, and don't even get me started on fighting on horseback. It is so satisfying to charge heavy attacks with great swords on horseback as you drag your sword across the ground and hear that sound effect. Music to my ears. But with daggers, you're just swinging back and forth, not hitting anything. That sucks. But back to the Reduvia, one of the few daggers I still like to play even if it has those aforementioned trade-offs. A Reduvia +8 has a B scaling in Arcane and obviously inflicts a lot of blood loss. What inflicts even more blood loss is its skill, Reduvia Bloodblade. You fire an admittedly short-range projectile, a wave of blood that damages and bleeds the first enemy it hits. While the low range kinda sucks, it is super satisfying to fire this multiple times in a row because you can chain it, and the massive bleed proc will be the ultimate payoff. One of the best things about this weapon has to be how early you can get it. This is legit the first thing you can do. If you're having trouble, just let Yura do the job and you got your hands on a super strong weapon before even starting your playthrough. Boost your Reduvia's successive attacks with Rotten Wingsword Insignia and Lord of Blood's Exaltation and you got yourself a tiny powerhouse. Especially a dual Reduvia build in NG Plus is super fun because you really feel like you're tearing enemies apart when given a big enough window. If you can look past the low range, the Reduvia is definitely one of the best daggers you can go with. Eleonora's Poleblade. You have to follow Yura's questline until he dies at the Second Church of Marika, where Eleonora will invade you. Defeat her to get this weapon. I love the design on this weapon. I mean, twin blades are an insanely cool weapon type already. Now just curve the blades very slightly and cover them in blood and you got yourself Eleonora's Poleblade. Goddamn. Gameplay? Well, we once again have fire damage, big plus, and bleed build up too. These two combined on a fast and hard hitting Poleblade, you can imagine the potential this thing has. It scales primarily with dexterity, but investing some points into Arcane definitely makes sense. Its Ash of War is called Bloodblade Dance. You perform a flurry of tornado-like attacks while moving forwards, and if you perform an additional input, you will slash once more and then dodge backwards. Since you're unleashing so many attacks, things like the Thorny Crack tier or Rotten Wingsword Insignia work very well again. And as you can already guess, multiple attacks on a bloodloss weapon is great too, and you already know which talisman can enhance this even more. Additionally, this does a lot of stagger damage, so lower poise enemies will just be stun locked. While a lot of the weapons I talked about require pretty big windows to use their Ashes of War safely, with Eleonora's Poleblade you can be a little bit more reckless because of that last evasive move in the combo. In my opinion, this is one of the things that makes this weapon just a ton of fun to play. Add a unique R2 where you perform a diagonal spinning attack, the Twin Blade moveset and this cool looking design, and you got yourself one of the most fun weapons on this list. It might not be the absolute best, although it's really good, but it's certainly fun. I really like this weapon. Ruin's Greatsword, obtained by defeating the Leonine Misbegotten Crucible Knight duo in Redman Castle either before or after the Radahn Festival. What can I say? I love this weapon. Its design is so chunky it looks like you're wielding a massive stone. I mean, I guess you are, it is a piece of ruin, but how did they manage to make that look so stylish? Gameplay wise, this is a colossal sword scaling with strength and intelligence. Probably one of those candidates that had those "strength is the only right way to play Souls games" people enraged because of that kinda random intelligence requirement. But honestly, it's enough to just put 16 points in int and then dump everything else into strength, because that is where the Ruin's Greatsword shines. It's a big ass sword with a few extras. Those extras being that every charged heavy attack will cause a small burst of gravity magic, which not only looks fucking awesome, but also damages and staggers enemies hit. Its weapon skill is Wave of Destruction. First off, awesome name. And second off, this is very similar to Taker's Flames. Very decent range, very good damage, and it's free aimable. Only thing is, it doesn't heal you, but in my opinion it looks and feels a little cooler than Taker's Flames, so whether you want style or health points is your choice. I can certainly say that wielding this thing feels mighty. Your attacks don't get much slower than this, but they also don't get much heavier than this. I think anything seeing you dragging this huge piece of stone across the ground will know you're a force to be reckoned with. This sword makes me feel like the immovable object and the unstoppable force at the same time. And I just realized this is the 4th legendary armament I've talked about, and that wasn't even on purpose. I guess next time I do a video like this, I'm ranking the other 5. Nagakiba. If you were a soulless monster, you could get this weapon early by killing Yura. But since you are not a heartless, disgusting human being, you will complete Yura's questline so he can die of other circumstances. This is the first non-unique weapon on this list, so it doesn't look super special or anything. It's just a katana and katanas look nice. It's a particularly long katana. It's so long. Gameplay wise, that is its greatest advantage. You have so much range with this thing. It's pretty much like playing a spear with a katana moveset. As its description puts it, reminiscent of a reinforced spear, its imposing length can be put to good use with powerful thrusting attacks. This means we got both slash and pierce damage with a unique thrusting R2, so good damage types, and of course since it's a katana it also has bloodlust. Now, being a non-unique weapon, the Nagakiba is very customizable. You can enchant it with any greases you have, and you can infuse it with any ashes of war that can be put on katanas, which are actually quite a lot. What worked really well for me was a cold infusion, because like that I was able to trigger both frostbite and bleed build-up, which not only sounds but is quite insane. You can trigger these effects super fast because you got that long reach while still having katana attack speed, so getting hits in is easier than ever. I think when it comes to weapons with exchangeable ashes of war, the Nagakiba is one of the most potent ones out there. Death's Poker, obtained by killing the Deathrite bird here. Design wise, ugly. It's just a stick. But look, if we're talking gameplay, we all know how good this weapon is by now. We have the nice greatsword reach and moveset with a unique R2. We have decent strength and dexterity scaling and frost build up. But don't be deceived, investing in strength and dex is a bad move for this weapon, as its skill scales with intelligence and intelligence only. It does magic damage and can therefore be buffed by everything magic enhancing. Magic Scorpion Charm, Magic Shrouded Crystal Tier, the Spellblade set and so on. You have two options with the weapon skill. Following up with a normal attack will set the ground aflame in the line before you, and following up with a strong attack will trigger an explosion of Ghost Flame. The explosion obviously does more damage, but the line of Ghost Flame is a nice ranged option. The thing about this weapon art is, like with so many others, it takes ages to cast. So you need to look for those really big windows or else you'll just animation lock yourself and get annihilated. But if you find those windows, Ghost Flame will not only deal a ton of magic damage but also build up Frostbite super quickly, and Frostbite is pretty much the best status effect in the game. So if you're willing to invest in intelligence to play this oversized stick, then go ahead, you will probably not regret it. Well, those were my personal opinions on 10 of the best weapons in the game. And I've seen this trend go around of Elden Ring YouTubers cutting off their outros, so I thought